I'm Selene Yeager, and I write for Bicycling Magazine for 150 years or so now. For those who don't know, just super brief introduction, I've raced kind of everything. I started out as a mountain bike racer. I decided to do this Ironman thing 10 years ago, and I trained really hard, and I won my age group, and I went to Kona 6 weeks later. Then I started this life as a mountain bike racer and raced sort of all over the world. I have a cute video from Brazil, just because it's always fun to sort of show some of, I don't think people have an idea of what those races look like, those really crazy international races. And spent about 6 years doing that, and now I'm super into the big gravel thing, which I think is really fun, Dirty Kansas. So I don't know like what everybody does in this room, but I'm just going to assume y'all like to do something, whether it be cyclocross, big things like Dirty Kansas, mountain bike races, I don't know. Do we have like all the disciplines in here? Anybody want to like, what do you do? Tell me. Right on. Anyone else? Cyclocross.
Cyclocross.
All right, mountain bike. Road.
All the above.
All the above, right on, I'm right near camp. Gravel. Sweet. All right, so as we all know, well, let me show you a video, like we'll get this started. I'm not the most, you can have solid results without going on fun employment. Though it's easier on fun employment, I hear. I have a daughter, I have a family, I have a business, so I get all those constraints. So this is from a 7-day stage race I did with Rebecca Rush in Brazil. And it was kind of amazing. They made us race 90 miles on day 2 and then had an Olympic-style cross-country race on day 3. Like, who does that, right? I mean, just like... And you had to race up to that chapel where they had a guy, you'll see him blessing you as you go by, because you'll see why he was blessing us. I was not in a tent because I was racing with Rebecca Rush, and when you race with a pro like that, you don't sleep in a tent. It was kind of amazing having, I'm not a pro like she is, so it was great having that kind of pro treatment. Every day that guy did that on the start, and I understood. Here I am in the middle, there we are. Brazil is a very beautiful country. We'd be on those things and we'd have like wild horses run out in front of us and stuff, and burros. It was not so cool, but I saw a guy kill a chicken by accident, like going on a fast downhill, ran into a wild chicken.
Excuse me, do the motos go on the same course that the riders do?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the top of a very hard climb. And the descent is so hard.
Yep.
That guy, holy water. I was like, give me 2. Give me all of it. It was one of those descents, like, you didn't dare, like, it was just as hard to walk as it was to ride. So you had to commit. Like, you were either on your bike or you were off your bike. Once you got on that thing, you were on it. I was not going that fast. Terrifying. It's the only thing I did in that race that I would call it was very scary. The locals really didn't know what to make of us. I don't think they'd ever seen anything quite like it.
How many laps did you do?
We had to do 5, and I thought I was going to die. It was really hard. Especially since that was 3 days. It's the 3rd stage of the race. Yeah, the rest of them were, you know, you actually went somewhere, or you made a big loop. This was they just threw an XC race in the middle of the stage race. And it was very hot. It was very, very hot. So that's kind of what I do. So, my first slide. If you have big goals, right? I think the biggest mistake I see when I work with people is that they have something they want to do. They want to like have a breakout cyclocross season, and they want to do this giant road race, or they want to do this. They have these big visions, which is awesome, and I'm all for that. Like aim high, but then they set these bars for themselves that they can't achieve, right? So I say like aim high, but set all your goal bars low, so you can achieve one after the other to get there. Don't say, people come, they're like, well, I'm gonna get up at 5 every day, and I'm gonna ride the trainer for 2 hours, and then after work I'm gonna blah, 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 and they don't do anything, right? Because they've just set these amazingly difficult barriers to do these things. I'm just like, okay, you have a job, you know, some of them have families, you have this life, and you are not gonna get up at 4:30 every morning. You're just not. You're not. So what? Don't lie to yourself. Don't set these bars, and you don't have to. So most of the time, I tell people 3 rides a week. Like set yourself for like 3 key rides a week. You know, make sure one is long, one is hard, and one is in between. And then we'll get to some of how to like manage the rest of your time in there. But my biggest, if you get nothing else from this, it's just, if your goal is like this big thing in May, that's great, set your goal, but then really commit to writing down smaller, achievable goals. And I'll show you some that you can fill in between, because you want to set yourself up for success. That's the biggest thing you want to do. You want to set yourself up for success. Too many people set themselves up to fail. And they don't mean to. I mean, that's not a criticism, I get it. You know, like, it's just in their head, they're just like, the secret life of Walter Mitty, like, I'm gonna do all this stuff, and it's just not realistic. And then their kid is sick and it's all blown, right? It's like they have this lofty thing, and they miss a couple days, and they're like, well, I might as well just stop. And that's not necessary. That shot is from Iron Cross this year. It was a really great course.
That's a great picture.
Yeah, that's me going, oh, it's still going. When you get to the top, keep climbing. That's another life lesson in general. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. Embrace the weeds. My PowerPoint's not exactly working, but that's fine. Technology is not my thing. That was a very, very, very hard day in Cuba where I crashed. I just can't even, you can see everything that happened that day in that phase. But you're going to, I have embraced the weeds there, and like things are gonna go wrong, but also embrace the weeds, like you have a house, you have an apartment, you have whatever, you have kids. You cannot, it's a lie to think you can have it all. It's a lie. You can't. You cannot have a perfect house and do your job, and like that's not true. So when you are shooting for something big, like when I first started training for Ironman and looked at my schedule, I was like, I can't, how am I gonna do all this? I mean, they had me training like 17 hours a week, that's a part-time job. So I was like, all right, you know what? The laundry's gonna sit for a while. Yeah, like I don't like that, but I'm just going to have to just embrace all the stuff that's just, that evergreen stuff that is always there. The laundry is actually never done. The dishes are actually never done, right? Like you can get them done for the day, but then they pile up again. And I think that when you want to shoot for something, whatever your goal is, you need to make a conscious effort to put it in your mind that you are going to let go of some of that stuff that you actually want to let go of anyway, right? Like maybe you won't go to Home Depot every weekend to like have the perfect lawn or have all that stuff. Like put yourself first for a while and embrace like that it's not going to be perfect. That you're good, and what might happen, which is kind of what's happened to me, is that after a while you come to realize that your priorities are reorganized. That stuff that you thought was so important actually wasn't that important. But you need to let it go. And I don't know what it is for everybody, but everybody's got it. Everybody's got some stuff that can go lower on the priority list than you think to make whatever these things that you want to achieve higher on the priority list. So these are grand scheme lessons here, they're life lessons. hit the high notes. So I don't know if people are self-coaching, if you have coaches, but I think that in any week span, like when you're training for something, you need to work on the stuff that is important for your goal. So if you're a cyclocross racer, right, you want to have 1 day a week where you're working technique, because technique is super, super important for cyclocross. You want to hit that note. If you are doing something like a dirty cans or a long thing, you want to make sure you have 1 day a week, you go long, right? And you want to have 1 day a week where everybody should have 1 day a week where they go really hard, and I mean really hard. I mean so hard that you want to vomit, because like just one, not every day needs to be hard, but like 1 day needs to have like very hard intervals, like Tabata intervals, and then those are all your high notes. Like whatever happens the rest of that week, who cares? You've hit your high notes. You know, and that can happen, truly, in 3 days a week. It can. You know, 4 is better, but if you commit yourself and really hit those notes 3, maybe 4 days a week, you're golden. It doesn't, a lot of people, I hate the term junk miles, because anytime you're on a bike, I don't think it's junk. But I get why people say that, because a lot of people just get nervous and they just think they need to like, I just need to ride, and they're not specifically doing anything. They're doing a group ride, they're doing all this stuff, and that's fine, but if you actually have goals that you want to obtain, or you want to get faster, or you want to like, you know, get in the next category or whatever it is, then you really need to get specific. Specificity goes a long way. So if you can just commit to those 3 days a week where you're like, okay, you know, this is the day I'm going to do my high intensity interval training, and this is the day that I'm going to do my longer ride, and I'm going to work on my mounts and remounts and whatever it is, my practice, then you're great. You know, I mean, it takes less than you think, but you need to fully commit yourself to those things. Fuel yourself. This is really, really hard for people. And I understand that too. I don't even know where to start. I tried to write down some notes on this one, and everybody's got their own issues, but what happens is everybody, because we're in this power to weight sport, people are all about, like, oh, I need to lose weight, I need to lose weight, I need to lose weight. So then they're not fueling their efforts, and they're having lousy workouts, and they don't feel good, and then they eat stuff that they shouldn't eat because they don't feel good, and they just set themselves into this vicious cycle where you really just need, food is not your enemy, food is not any of these things, food is the fuel for your body, and if you're going to work out, you need to put that fuel into your body. The best advice I ever give people with that is just like, eat how you're training that day. So if you're going hard, you're going to need, you know, some carbohydrates in your system. They are not the enemy. You're going to need some carbs for your hard efforts. Do your hard efforts. Have a little snack when you're done. If you have a recovery day, you don't need to eat as much. I mean, just try to like undulate your fuel intake with the way that you're training. I know that's easier said than done. And I'm going to leave a lot of time for questions. So if people have specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. But the time to try to be losing weight is not when you're trying to achieve your big goal. It's just not. You're getting in your own way. It might happen naturally. If weight is a thing for you and you do want to, then honestly, this time of year is better. You know, like sort of coming off of cyclocross season, whenever you're done and just sort of doing base rides and that's the time to start looking at your plate and start doing those adjustments. Not next spring when you're road racing or whatever you're doing and you're just like on vapors because you're not feeding yourself and you're not recovering well. Like you need to take care of your body. You know you're fueling yourself well when your workouts feel good, you recover well, and your weight is stable. If your weight is going up and down 10 pounds here and there and all over the place, you're not doing it. You're overcompensating, undercompensating, putting yourself in all kinds of stressful situations, and your body doesn't respond well to that. It's not easy, and that's probably the hardest thing that everybody deals with, quite honestly, is the fueling yourself. But we're not paid professionals who have people feeding us. We have to take care of ourselves. Move in the mornings. That is a real bike of mine. That is the mudroom. I'm a big fan of this. Like, I will get up and just get on those rollers for 20 minutes before breakfast sometimes. Like I have it all set up so it's no-brainer. So in the winter when it's crappy and it's icy out there and all that stuff, I don't know if you have indoor trainers, everybody in this room, but if you can set yourself up so you don't have to do anything, your clothes are staring at you when you look at, when your eyes open, you're just like, I'm inside so I don't have to put on my booties and my mittens and my lobsters and my helmet. Like you can just sort of get on that bike and just, I think this is as much of a mental exercise as it is a physical one, but I like to start my day maybe three mornings a week like that. Just get up, get on that bike, and good things happen. It just sets the stage. And you can do your whole workout and get it out of the way, or you can just do that on your recovery day. But I'm a big fan of just getting the mental and physical juices moving in the morning because you've just said to yourself, I am a bike rider, I have goals. I mean, it's just sending all the right mental signals to you to start that way. And you're in such a better mood. You're in such a better mood. You're gonna be grouchy as hell when you wake up and you're like, but just have music, have a podcast. I don't know what you like to listen to, but if you have it, you can see I have a speaker there. I'm cranking music, I'm doing the whole thing, and I get off that and I'm ready to just, I'm just in such a good place. And energy begets energy. You get off that, you're energized, and then you don't immediately go into the day, you immediately get going into the day set with your goals, and I think that the next choices that you make throughout the day follow that. It's just a really good thing to set the tone. And mornings, let's face it, and it has to be early. My daughter, she's in high school, so she gets up. I have to get her out of the house before 7. I mean, it's criminal, right? So I must get up earlier than I want to. But 20 minutes is fine, 20 minutes, whatever, just to get there, get moving, do a couple efforts. I'm like, whew, okay, here we go. It's a good thing, and nobody has thrown me a curveball yet at 6 o'clock in the morning. I haven't gotten any annoying, or I'm not checking. I could get annoying emails at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm not checking. Take advantage of your mornings whenever you can, because they are one of the few times that it works. It's the rides you don't want to do that get you where you're going. That's one of my favorite sayings. I did not want to do that. I was training for a 200-mile race across Michigan, and the last thing I wanted to do was get on that bike in the cold-ass rain and ride with my friend for, I don't know what we did, 80 miles. We did 4 hours, I don't know what it was, but I was just laying there going, I cannot even. But when you make yourself go out, and you should ride in the rain, everybody here, ride when it's cold, ride in the rain, if you're gonna race and stuff, it toughens you up. And when the conditions are not awesome for your event, you are ready for them. I mean, it's important. It is important. Because I was on the start line at Ironcross on Sunday and it was sleeting on me. And I was just like, really? Yeah. And you know how to dress. That's a big part too. Like when you practice, you know how to take care of yourself. So it's the rides, keep that in your head. It's the rides you don't want to do that get you where you're going. Like, commit to those. And they will pay off. And that was at the end of that. I was still not super stoked, but it paid off. And then when I got to Michigan, it was this race across Michigan, and it was freezing and damp that morning. I was like, okay, I've done this. I know what to wear. I know exactly the gloves I need. I know exactly everything. Use the spaces in between. I'm stealing that one from Rebecca Rush, because she taught me that, and it's in my head a lot. In any training, in any event, actually in life, there are always times that, you push, and then there's this time that you're gonna coast through it. And she's like, don't coast through it. She'd be screaming at me all the time, don't coast through it. Because when everybody else is coasting and you're moving, you get ahead of them. I was like, you're right. And that's also discipline to do that. Because I would be much more inclined, I would not work the downhills as hard as she would, and I was like, if I just pedal a little bit, I maintain my momentum. And I'm a big fan, if you're going to be a weekend racer, you need all the advantages you can get. And the spaces in between are also like technical spaces. If you race cross, practice. You lose so much time. I lose a ton of time on my rebounds because I'm terrible at it. You watch the people who are good at getting back on their bike in a race, they're light years ahead of you. And if you're doing 8 laps, it's a lot of time. So if you practice that stuff, these are little pump track rollers at my local cyclocross thing. So if you practice the stuff that's hard for you and that's tricky, it's free speed, it's free time. I mean, it's not fun. It's like practicing the piano. I mean, nobody loves to do it, but you love to be able to like, sit down at a party and play the piano. It's kind of the same thing. I'm a big fan of, and I'm one that doesn't do it often, of practicing things. Practice changing your tires. When you flat, do you freak? Because you're like, oh, that's 20 minutes. You know, because it's just, that's me too. Just going, race is gone, because it's going to take me a half hour to get this thing off here, because I never practice, so I have made myself do that, like while I'm watching the Eagles or whatever, I sit there, I'm like, okay, I'm going to practice, just like, and it's such a confidence builder, because then when something does happen, you're like, you know how to do it, because you've done it. We can't just put up our hands at races, we don't have mechanics. Stay strong. Whatever your thing is, I do a little CrossFit in the off season, but I think that a lot of people don't prioritize strength training when in their endurance based, and you should. There's so much, I could give you reams and reams and reams of research right now that shows that heavy strength training, particularly for cyclists, it improves your endurance, it improves your top end power, it improves your efficiency. It does not, if you do it, I think strength training got a really bad rap for a while because when it first sort of weighed its way into the endurance spectrum, everybody was lifting like bodybuilders. They were lifting like 3 sets of da-da-da-da-da. They were lifting, which is actually hypertrophy, muscle building. It's not how we necessarily as endurance athletes need to be lifting. We do better, as research shows, doing like fewer sets heavy. Fewer, because it's the neuromuscular connections. Then you make strength gains without all that showy muscle that you don't necessarily want. You don't want to put on a lot of muscle as a cyclist because you're carrying it, but you want to be strong. So I'm a big fan. I'm guilty of not doing it year round. I try to do maintenance, but there's only so many hours of the day, and if I'm going to be honest, but I think that if you do it even just in the off season, you can carry yourself through to the next off season. But strength training should be in everybody's, and you don't need to do that much. I just wrote this whole, there's been many studies where it's like 1 set even is fine. Like whatever you do in strength training, you will benefit from it, even the smallest bit. That has been shown time and time again. So there's like 0 excuse. If you've got 15 minutes, you can get strong. That's 100% true. Get creative. Drink beer. That's important. Actually, kind of is important. But one of the things that I learned because I made a lot of mistakes when I trained for Ironman, and I upset my family more than I wanted to, because I just had this idea that I needed I needed to ride 6 hours on this day and blah blah blah, and it took a lot of time and energy away from my family but I was learning. I just didn't know how to work it into my life a little better. And then when I started to train for these 200-mile gravel races, I'm like, I don't want to do that again. So I would find events that often maybe my husband was doing, my family was going to be doing, and I'd ride to them. Like I would use that, like I would just work it in a little better so it wasn't as disruptive. So I was still on my bike for 6 hours. So in this case, like I went down to a friend's house, we got up super early, we rode to a ride that everybody was doing, we rode the ride, and we rode back, and then we had a beer. But it was, instead of missing my family and missing everybody for the whole day, it was just a smaller sliver of the day, and I still got the same amount of time. And you can do that more than you think, and it becomes kind of fun, and it's easier now than it ever has been to work in those long rides with Strava, Map My Ride, whatever. You can find routes and just download them in your GPS and just go. Like I've ridden to weddings, I've ridden to like all kinds of stuff. I'm just like, Dave, you want to put a bag in your car? And and he's like, sure. So he puts a bag of my clothes in his car, and I ride to where we're going, and then I'm happy, I'm not miserable, I'm having a good time. And it's just like there's all kinds of creative ways that you can work riding in if you just look for them. Respect your recovery. Big one. story behind that, if you don't know, they have this chase to chase at these big rides. So Salsa brings this chase lounge in. I wanted that couch so bad. That was Michigan. It was 213 miles across Michigan. And they had told us the night before, if you make it to the chase, you will definitely make it to the finish. That's all they kept saying. So you don't know where this thing is going to be, but you know it's going to be somewhere. And it was literally probably 200 miles. And I was coming undone. I was starting to get very, very, everything hurts at that point. And I finally saw that couch, and I was like, oh yeah. But respect your recovery in that, like, you don't have the luxury as someone who works full-time and has a family and has all this stuff to burn the candle all the time. I mean, then your training becomes a little bit wasted if you don't recover properly. Sleep is huge. I know it's hard to get to bed early, but if you can get 7 hours of sleep a night, can anyone do that? I mean, like more than 6? Can we get more than 6? And I would tell you 8, but I know a lot of people are like, I'm not getting 8 hours of sleep. But if you can get 7 even, if you can get, all the magic happens when you sleep. It's like rolling the car into the machine shop at night. Like all the hard work you do sinks in when you sleep. You make growth hormone, you make all that stuff. It's really, really, really important. So I can't emphasize enough that if you can, even if it's after, even if it's just sneaking in a cat nap on a Saturday after a really hard ride, just be like, I'm just gonna go upstairs and sort the laundry. Just like sleep for 20 minutes or something. Seriously, it really makes a big difference. Set a break point. That was not a good day. Recreational athletes burn out and have overtraining more than professional athletes do. And there's a reason for that, because stress is stress is stress. So we try to layer all this stuff on, and then we start getting grouchy, and we are overtrained, and our performance slides, and we're not making gains. I think it's really important, just the same way that you're setting this goal, you need to set an end point for yourself. So you don't feel like, I'm gonna be doing all this work and all this stuff, and there's no break in that. Because mentally and physically, that's setting yourself up for just not good performance. So telling yourself, okay, my event is whatever date it is, or my season, my cross season starts here, it ends there. Make sure that you say, after November, whatever, I do nothing. Or I do whatever I want. No structure, no whatever. Give yourself, I'm going to mow the lawn. Like all that stuff that you haven't done that I told you to just throw out the window, do that stuff then. Like, give yourself the chance to just go, okay, now I'm going to clean the garage, attend to my family, I'll ride if I want to, I won't if I want to. I'm kind of in that space right now, like after Iron Cross, because willpower is not an endless source. I think people don't understand that. Like getting yourself up and training and getting yourself up, waking up early to go to the event and getting your stuff together and driving there and putting on numbers and all that, like it takes a lot out of you that you're not always appreciating. It takes a lot, and again, it's not an artesian well. You have to let it fill back up. So when you use all that willpower and you use all that discipline and you've been good, you must give yourself then this break to be like off the rails. Like, I'm putting my bike down, I'm putting this, and I'm just, if the spirit moves me and it's sunny and 65, I'm gonna ride, but if it's crappy, I'm not. And that does wonders for you. It does wonders for you, because then you're a happy athlete, you're a happy recreational athlete, and then you're jonesed again, you're juiced up to get back on the bike when you give yourself a break. You're ready to go, your willpower has been refilled, and you can start the cycle all over again. But if you try to keep on that treadmill, you don't go anywhere. Literally, it's like a treadmill. You just don't make progress. And don't forget to smile. This is supposed to be fun, right? This is supposed to be fun. I see so many people, they're so miserable. They're so miserable. I'm like, why are you here? What are you doing? And I'm just like, things I get being serious, I get wanting to reach your goals, I get working hard, I get all of that, but if it's making you miserable, you're doing something wrong. You are. Like, this is supposed to be fun. All the rest, there's plenty of in our lives that's no fun. There's lots of stuff in our life that's no fun. And yes, you can be serious and compete, but at the end of the day, it really, your life, the sun will come out tomorrow if you're DFL, right? It will. And people respect you just for being there. Don't put all your self-worth in it. Don't like just remember that you're actually doing this, hopefully, because you enjoy doing it. Like it's a big thing. And if you do enjoy doing it, like all the rest of this stuff falls into place. And if you find yourself not enjoying it, find something else to do. Take up stand-up paddleboard. Like it's too much. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time to be out there if you're just not enjoying it. And that was, I mean, why am I dressed up like a moose? Okay, so I'm in Alaska, and it was a single speed race, and you always have to wear a costume. So I dressed up like a moose. So that's all I got. Because I was in, and thanks. So I will take questions if people have questions. Any questions? I'm open to questions. I have a book out. I'll plug that real quick. Climb. I'm a big fan of climbing, and I wrote this book, and it's got all the advice. It's more than just climbing, although that's the end result. It's just about how to like brain train and train yourself and get strong. But anyway, any questions? Yeah.
How do you push through like the mental blocks?
How do I what?
Like push through the mental blocks because like it's easy to get in your head. And
Oh, I'm in my head. That's a terrible place to be.
yeah, mine is horrible, so.
Terrible. I get that. So what like where are we when we're having mental?
So I'm climbing because climbing is my nemesis. So you know, like oh my god, like you know.
Are you negative
chatter.
self-talking to yourself?
Chatter.
Because and the research is pretty sound. Like as soon as those negative voices come in, you start shutting yourself down. It's like there's a theory called the central governor that you have this. Pretty much your brain is your central governor, right? It controls everything. And as soon as you say, I'm done, it pretty much goes, you know what, you're done. Mm-hmm. I'm a big fan, if you can't lie to yourself, I like to lie to myself. I'm like, this isn't that bad. It's not that steep. It's fine. It can't be that long. Sometimes it's really long. You know, but just kind of like, if I can't do anything, I count. I count back from 30, I count from 10 over, I count my breaths. So I'll just 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, synchronize my pedaling to my breath. I say, Selene, look around, it's probably beautiful. You know, and I try to keep but I find that you can't, I do this on my mountain bike when I get scared too, and it works really well. Because whatever that mathematical lobe is, and I'm not gonna step out of my lane for the science because I don't know all of this, but you can't multitask that way in your head, so you can't be thinking all those things while you're also doing all this numerical stuff. So I count, I have mantras, you know, I do, like I'll just be like, you are strong, you're prepared, you know, like whatever it is, just say good things to yourself over and over again.
Change the name, altitude adaptation training.
Altitude adaptation training?
Yeah, instead of climbing.
Oh, okay.
So
You're call it something else. But I am a big fan of that. And sometimes my other thing is when my demons get really loud, I ask them if they need sugar. Because sometimes when I'm just like, oh, you suck, why are you doing this? And that happens, I'm like, am I getting hungry? You know, so like I have like jelly beans or something, like, oh, I'm so much better. You know, like sometimes the demons just need a piece of candy. I work, so I'm not kidding. I've gotten through entire races like that where I'm like, I think I need a jelly bean. And then I'm gonna lie myself all the way up this hill. But yeah, you have to change the narrative. You have to. You cannot be going up because it hurts your performance for real and it makes that part no fun. So yes. And then every time you do that, it builds on itself, right? So when you successfully do it one time, you're going to be more likely to successfully do it the next time, for real. And then it just becomes, the script changes. But you have to physically work on writing that script yourself. I highly recommend that counting, though. It's done wonders for me. I did that all last Sunday. It's almost unconscious now.
Also, don't repeat failure. So if you have to work yourself, and don't go back to climbing. Switch the topic. So you get some.
Well, in your training, yeah. But if you're out in an event, I can't be like, I'm not going to do that hill. I'm gonna skip that one.
You don't have time to be upset with yourself.
No, I agree with that. I
But
agree
in
with
your training, if you're hit a wall in periodization.
that. Right, right. Do something else.
Yeah, break the pattern.
Yeah, that's good advice. Yeah.
What are some of your post-ride, what are some of your go-tos?
After a ride?
After a ride, besides beer.
Besides beer.
It's a feeling itself, I know.
It depends what I'm doing. If I've done something, that has emptied the tank, and it's very hard, then I will go for a recovery shake. So I'll just do like protein powder, whatever kind of milk you like, and a shot of espresso because I like a shot of espresso in it. And then because that's a twofold thing. Sometimes after something really hard, I don't want to eat anything. Like my belly's just not there. And that's just like a really easy way to get a little hydration in, little carbs, little protein, and then you're good. And then just eat when you feel like it. Have your next meal when you feel like it. But when you need that recovery, I think that's the time for that kind of stuff.
And also, speaking of that, like with the recovery for sleep, do you have any recommendations? I mean, I'm reading different things. You should have some protein or things like that before you go to bed. It helps with the refueling muscles.
Well, they actually I'm just writing about that now. There's been a lot of good research about 30 grams of protein 30 minutes before bed. They did a study with cottage cheese because it just had that, but you do synthesize it better at night, and it helps because you are doing all that recovery is happening, and you at night. So, and you don't need, obviously, like you've done nothing. If you've just sat and watched football and ate peanuts and drank beer, you don't need to eat protein before you go to bed. But if you're in a big training cycle, yeah, I think that's, and it's also satiety, so you're not going to sit there and just, it'll help you not feel hungry if you're feeling hungry before bed. Yeah.
How about nutrition before you take? I'm not a competitive cyclist, so
Okay.
for me, a ride is like maybe 30 miles,
Okay.
medium some hills. But just how do you just at my level? What's the best? Like, what do you eat, and how much before you actually get on the bike should you eat? Like, I obviously not gonna eat and jump on the bike like 2 seconds later.
Well, it depends what you're doing, right?
Okay.
So if you're going to be climbing hills or doing some hard work where you don't want stuff in your gut, for sure, then you don't want to eat something. But cycling's pretty forgiving that way. Like running, you have to be really careful. Like you don't want to eat anything before you're gonna, because the jostling aspect.
Right.
Cycling's much more forgiving that way. That's why you'll see cyclists sitting at a coffee shop eating Danishes and whatever, and they get right back on because it
Sure.
allows for
Well,
that.
the Danishes, yeah, but like the kind of actual, if you're actually gonna eat a breakfast.
Oh,
like,
which I
you're
do
gonna-
every day, yeah.
Yeah. So what do you eat before a ride? I mean, anything specific or just?
No, I'm very loose about
Okay.
that.
All right.
I'm very loose about that for many reasons because I've met too many people who are so rigid that if they don't have the food that they need at that specific time, their day is blown. It's like, I don't have my steel cut oats and blah, blah, blah. We've been at these things where all there is greasy Chinese food and it's a big race. I'm like, well, that's what we're eating. Like, what are you gonna do? But if you get a little too persnickety, I think it's a little bit of a trap. I think it's better to be a little, the body is more adaptable than we give it credit for. So it just depends what you're doing. I mean, sometimes you don't need anything. Like if you've eaten a breakfast and then you're gonna ride whatever hours later, if you're not hungry, don't worry about it. Just put a banana in your pocket in case you get hungry out there, right? And you're fine.
Thanks. You're confirming what I.
Good, I'm glad.
That's kind of how I've done it all
Yeah.
day, so that's fine. Thank you.
I thought I saw another.
Yeah, just kind of going off of that mental thing. So one of the problems I've been having is I live in the city. I live in Philly,
Yep.
and I live in a very busy area. So sometimes I'll get in my head, I don't want to ride because I'm afraid I'm going to get hit by a car.
That's not unreasonable, right?
So what are some tips on how to break that mental cycle? I haven't maybe had ridden like 20 miles the day before, and I'm constantly riding, but then I get a mental block. Like, I don't want to get hit by a car. I'm not going to
Manhattan, you'll find.
So you're telling me that maybe yesterday you did that ride, but now today you're nervous
Now, for
about it.
whatever reason, you just happen to see someone got hit by a car, now you're like all in your head about it. And then I've been finding I'm pulling back from riding now and doing more mountain biking because I'm afraid to go out in the street, even
Right.
though I have no reason to be. So I mean, mental
Well, that's
blocks
my,
are-
I think that's what I'm trying to tease out in my head is I don't know how much of what your perception is real. I mean, there's always a little bit that's real, right? I mean, you're in the city and that's true. But are there creative ways that you can get to streets that you don't feel as,
I've tried.
do you know what I'm saying? 'Cause
Yeah, and I've tried, I mean, the people in the room here, I have to take Spruce Street from West Philly to South Street Bridge.
right.
So, you got,
Do you have this stuff, other stuff that helps make you feel more visible and a little safer, like the blinking lights and all that stuff?
yeah, it's really all in my head.
It's
I
not,
know-
it's understandable.
Yeah, so I just didn't know if there's like any mental tricks that, like if you come across a pretty big obstacle while you're mountain biking,
Yes.
and that gets in your head that you're afraid of that.
Right, no,
It's the same, so, I mean, are there any tricks that you've used for that, because maybe that can translate into road riding? Like, oh my God, there's this rock garden that's insane, I'll break my spine if I go down. So what do you tell yourself? Because it's still fear-based. So I
it
guess
is still fear-based, and I give myself permission to get off my bike, honestly. Like, I mean, I just give myself permission so it doesn't become this all or nothing obstacle. And that's what I'm trying to say, even if there's like little pieces of that you can overcome. Just like, just tell yourself, I'm gonna go out for 10 minutes, and if I'm not comfortable, it's okay if I turn around. Like, just do that. And then, once you're out there, you might be like, I'm fine. Right, but yeah, just give yourself, help her out to do that.
Well, and the other thing is sometimes like fear is always forward facing. Like we're
Yeah.
projecting an idea of something that hasn't
And then it gets
happened.
big.
Right,
Yeah.
and it hasn't happened. So if you can kind of stay present with the now, so if you do well, let me just go out for 10 minutes and see where I get, and then you remind yourself, like, I'm fine right now. I see everybody, I see that everybody sees me, and you're reminding yourself what's happening right now. It might,
And that builds on itself, too.
yeah.
A lot of that stuff builds.
Can you detour and take a subway and then get
Go around it.
Avoid the detour, difficulty, and get your workout anyway.
Right, yeah. It's that, it's scary.
Yeah, but just, seriously, just start that way. Just, it's there, so just give yourself, like, and that's fine. Like, I'm just gonna get out the door, and it is okay. If that doesn't work out, I'm gonna go mountain biking later, whatever.
Yeah.
Just see what happens.
Okay.
I also have a motorcycle license about 20 years ago, and I got it from the Motorcycle Safety Foundation. Pennsylvania runs. In my day, it was free training. You had to have a motorcycle owner's permit, and I ride motorcycles now also. But that training is very helpful for me on the road, on my bike, on my bicycle, because you learn ways of connecting with car drivers, communicating with your body, with your head, with your helmet. And basically on a motorcycle, you have to be in the space of, I'm a car, I'm a car. And I tend to ride my bicycle like that on the road also. And I use I use much bigger arm and hand gestures than I would on a bicycle. I will signal traffic with my helmet, just go with my head, because you learn how to do that. So in order to stay safe on a motorcycle, you have to be a very commanding presence on the road. And that's exactly how I ride my bicycle. And I'm just saying that the training is available for anybody. In my day, it was like $7 to get a motorcycle learner's permit. It's not expensive, and that's all you need to take the training. And they provide motorcycles, helmets, gloves, and you do it over like 2 weekends. Mm-hmm. It's not a huge time investment. And then, of course, if you pass the test at the end, you have a motorcycle license, so you can go get your motorcycle. But it's a different.
Yeah,
It's very creative.
Well,
Yeah.
it's just that it's a bigger space. You're trained to occupy a bigger space on 2 wheels, which is imaginary anyway, and so you can translate that back onto who you are on the bicycle. And
I always try to project bigger than I am. My mind is 6 feet anyway.
me too. I'm a very large, very attitudinous, obnoxious person on 2 wheels.
Yeah.
Always.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Thank you.
I was just going to say, an attorney that spoke yesterday, he was saying,
I saw who, I didn't hear her speak though. Yeah.
well, one of the things that he just said that, we all should ride with, in terms of traffic, is just be convinced that every single car you see could possibly be a danger to you.
See, that's not.
Don't take
Well, I was gonna
anything.
say.
I already know that.
Well, a lot of people don't.
I share my bike lane, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Any other training? And nutrition training? Yeah, go.
what do you do if you're injured or sick and you're kind of, you want to ride, but you're not sure?
I feel sorry for myself. No, seriously. So, are you asking me if you're coming back from something, or you don't know whether, like, where the lines are, where it's okay to ride or not ride?
Sick and injured are different animals.
I understand that.
I guess more so sick, like, you know, if you're
Right.
getting over a cold, like, when's the best time to start?
So often you'll feel like if you are achy all over, that's not a time to ride, right? But if you've just got stuff in your head, a lot of times you feel better. Like I just use that sort of above below the neck kind of thing. Like if it's all just above your neck and you're just all congested, go ahead out and ride, clear your head, blow some snot rockets, get it out. But if it's lower, if it's in your chest and stuff, it's usually like, let that, you don't want to drive it further in your system. And that's just like a really good rule of thumb.
When you're, I guess in your off season, so you said strength training, but what other ways? I mean, like, so sometimes it's easy, for me at least, that, you know, like, things are off and then it's off.
Right. I am off. I'm not doing anything.
So what's a good way to pare down without turning it all off?
I think honestly, I think it's okay to go all off for just not more than 2 weeks. Let's not get crazy. But like, I think like just giving yourself that liberty to just like, if I don't feel like doing anything, I'm not. But then, yes, like let's get some structure back into it. I think for me personally, I'll go to the gym 2 days a week for sure. I do some yoga, and I make sure that I do some riding, most days a week. I just schedule like week to week. I'm just like, okay, this is what I'm doing, and just make sure that I have a base level of activity going on. So you're not ever starting from zero. You want to avoid starting from zero. That's the big thing, because zero is hard to get back up from. Anyone? Yep.
Do you still lift weights through the race season just to maintain some strength, or do you just stop lifting?
I, in my mind, tell myself I'm going to every year, and in my life, I don't. I think you should. Ideally, it's helpful, but the time, because I do all that long stuff, there's just not time. I do lift pretty much, I'd say probably half the year. I'm doing something. In the winter season, I'm lifting heavy, and I'm lifting a few days a week. And then as I go into spring, it's down to 1 to 2, and then it just disappears. And then at like this time of year, I notice it. I'm starting to feel like I could get back in the gym, especially because I do so much mountain biking around here. That strength really translates. Like cyclocross, anything that you do that's punchy, you feel the strength. So,
if you were to continue strength, would you try to schedule it on like Wednesdays in the middle of the week, or would you try to do it like if you're racing on a Saturday or Sunday, you might be a little worn out. Wednesday, Tuesday,
you're asking the timing of it.
Sore for the next race,
Yep.
even if maybe you're doing some spin, hard effort and stuff in between.
yeah, sometimes I try to piggyback it. So I'll do if I'm gonna start doing some efforts to wake back up in the middle after the weekend racing. I'll lift on the same day I do effort, so then I'm not compromising any easy days.
You separate them like morning and afternoon.
Yeah, whatever works out. Or I'll do them concurrently if I can. If I have that time in the morning to block. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It's just, it's better not to compromise a recovery day or another day by trying to like squeeze in lifting. Yeah. I'd rather do it on a hard day. Just make your hard day hard, and then, follow suit.
But then if you're trying to reach power targets, like in your actual speed training session, you might be a little worn out, or does that not even matter? You don't even focus.
I'm not sure how much it matters. I mean, if you are concerned about that kind of like very specific power training, then I would just do that first. I mean, just do whatever you're prioritizing first. Do your workout on the bike first, and you can lift afterwards. Yeah, but I do I find if you can do it back to back, there's something magical sometimes that happens if you prime it up with some lifting and then get on the bike. I find that works very well, and it's kind of voodoo-y, but I've had many coaches tell me that they find it too. So your muscles sort of remember the last thing that you've done. I mean, it's just those neuromuscular connections. So I'm in the gym, I've done the deadlifts, I've done my bike, I've done all this stuff, and then I get on my bike and I just nail stuff, and there's something wonderful that happens there.
Get your neuromuscular.
Yeah, I mean, you've just put it, you've just said, okay, muscles, we've done this, and this is why. Boom. And it
Makes a lot of sense.
yeah. Good question, though. A lot of people struggle with that, and it's real, like trying to fit all that stuff in.
Well, I wish I'd separate them on different days. I never thought about putting them on the same day.
I would put them on the same day. I think it works better.
For like recovery, like what do you do for like, long events, like 4+ hour events? And like also in that question, like what if you do when they're back to back, like every weekend you get it, you have a long event, like the past 2 weekends with the gravel stuff.
Oh yeah, no, I just had them paved, and then I had an iron cross and all that. It depends where I'm in my season. Like early in the season, I find I'm still fresh enough that I can do that long thing on Saturday and have kind of almost a normal train. I can get back into training on Tuesday even and go into the next thing. This time of year, no way. Like after I'm paved, I'm like, I'm laying on this couch and I'm gonna like get on my bike and just be real easy. And then I did one hard mountain bike race during the week, not race, ride, short, just to sharpen back up and then go. Like the fatigue becomes, it builds over the season.
And like how do you prevent yourself from becoming like over exhausted?
Well, it's better to pull back. It's better to do less, especially when you're doing that long stuff, and going fresher than to get nervous and be like, oh, I better get on my bike and like test the legs. Don't test the legs. They're fine. Like let them recover and then get back. Because people do that all the time and they just make themselves tired. You're better to fully recover. The miles are in there. When you're doing that long stuff, they're already in there. You just need to recover and relax, and that's the hard thing. People have a hard time doing that.
So 3 rides a week. The first 2 are long and hard. What was the third?
Goldilocks. So it's like a long ride and then like short, hard stuff. And then everybody can use some threshold, like that sweet spot of just like you're riding with somebody a little faster than you'd rather ride with. Yeah. Going. Go. All right. Thanks for coming.